Hello and welcome to part 4 of the video tutorials on how to create a Unity third-person controller. In the previous videos, we learned how to create the camera, we moved the player around different camera modes and many other features that helps us create a proper third-person controller. So in this video, I'm gonna cover the different move speeds, and I'm also going to set up a crouching system. So to start, let's check out our player. As you can see, there is a character controller attached to this player. This character controller is also acting as a collider. So let's go ahead and check this out. As you can see, if I am going to disable this mesh renderer, you could see these grain lines. This is our collider. So in order to crouch, we need to change the height of character controller. By changing the height, we determine if the character can collide with the objects above his head or not. So we need two values for this height, one for stand height and another for crouch height. Let's actually go ahead and define these values in the third-person controller. Here in the control settings, I'm gonna define the different heights. So we also need another variable here. Let's collapse the camera for now and go to the move region. We need another variable to determine whether our character is crouched or not. We also need another variable to return the height for us relative to this crouched. So I'm just going to use a public variable and I'm going to name that controller height. And whenever I try to get the value for this controller height, I'm going to check if we are crouched or not. So if I am crouched, I'm just going to return the crouch height. And if I'm not crouched, I'm just going to return stand height. And this is a control height with the uppercase C. I'm just going to create another controller height, private float controller height, and we go to the update movement, and somewhere here, let's say at the end of our update function, we're going to check if the player pressed the crouch button. So let's say input.get button down, and we say crouch. In this case, we're going to set the value for crouch to the opposite of the crouch using this sign, which means if the crouch is true, turn it to false. If it's false, turn it to true. And here, at the end of this, we say controller height with the lowercase c equals to math.lerp, and we're going to lerp the control height to the control height with the uppercase C, and we could even determine another variable called crouch speed. Let's actually go and create this. And we're going to create a crouch speed. Let's go back to our movement, and here I'm going to say crouch speed multiplied by time.delta time. So this is going to change the crouch based on the button that user presses. And here, controller height is going to be changed to whatever control height with the uppercase C is going to return. And this uppercase C control height is going to return either crouch height or stand height, depending on the value of the crouched. Now we're going to change the controller height, and we're going to set the value for it to the controller height that we've calculated. So one thing you should know that by default Unity doesn't have a value for crouch in its input. So let's go ahead and create this by going to edit project settings, and here in input I'm just going to duplicate jump, And here in the new input that we've created, I'm just going to name it crouch. And here on the positive button, I'm going to write C. So whenever player hits the C key on its keyboard, the crouch will happen. So let's go ahead and play the game. So this is our player. As you can see, when I hit C, it's just going to sit down. When I hit C again, it's going to go up. Of course, this is a capsule, but the real character you're going to be choosing is going to be controlled by the animation. So the way you want to handle your mesh, it could be different and it's going to be up to you. But as you see here, I've selected the player. Here's the height of the player. And when I hit C here in the game, it's just going to change back to 1 and it's going to change to 2 again when I hit it again. So let's go back to the code here and change different speeds for our character. I'm going to go up here in the control settings. I'm going to change the move speed to run speed, and it's going to generate some errors here, as you can see, because there is no move speed. We changed it to run speed, and we're going to create another variable called sprint speed. Let's go back to our movement, and here in the update movement, I'm going to create a float variable called move speed, and it's going to be equals to run speed. But here I'm going to add an extra condition to check if player is pressing the shift key, the left shift key, or any other key you want to define for sprinting. So if there is a button being held down named sprint, just change the move speed. So let's go ahead and define actually a button for this sprint. I'm going to go to my inputs, project settings, input, and I'm just going to duplicate this crouch and name it sprint. And now let's change the positive button to left shift. You might want to go to Fire 3 and remove this here to make sure one button is not assigned for two different tasks. Now let's go ahead and close this and play the game. When I move around, I move with the run speed, but when I hold the shift, the speed is going to change. Let's actually go to free mode. This is the normal speed, and I'm going to hit shift and it's going faster. So that's it for this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.